Hello and welcome to IRL FP here for round 6 in Spain, Catalonia. We're just getting started in qualifying. Currently no one has made their way out onto the track yet. I think maybe an AlphaTauri is going to be the first one, either Edward or, yeah, it's going to be Ross Denholm. And he has a Williams just behind him as well. So we'll just be waiting for them to get their outlaps ready. Of course they'll have to warm up their tyres well enough as well. Currently on the mediums, it looks like a few people on the mediums right now, so clearly the choice of tyre, at least right at the start. As Ross gets out of the way for the Williams. And if it stops going through random cars, no it won't. Of course it won't. That is Rocco Walsh ahead of him now. So he will be the one that will go on board with first then. Of course he makes his way through the final few corners as Cameron Young retires. Is there anyone stopped on track? There is actually a crash as a Ferrari just went by it. I'm not sure. Well, he is continuing as well. Looks at least a similar colour. I'm not really sure what car Cameron was in, but he is retired for some reason. No one had a quali ban or anything to serve today, but we'll be on board now, of course, with Rocco Walsh, who is on the mediums in the Williams car, so won't be expecting anything huge from him, but he usually does pull at least top five finishes fairly regularly, even if he's in the slower cars. Usually just keeps it clean, especially with no penalties that he seems to be so good at. But of course we go through the lap. He's going to be finishing Sector 2 in a few moments as he goes through the right-hander. Do have to have a little bit of a lift, especially in these lower end cars, as there's someone getting out of his way there for the hairpin. As of course turn 11 don't really want to be up on the curb, and then through the very long right-hander of turn 12, and the last few turn 13 of course want to just clip the curb there, and then 14 and 15 want to set yourself up for a good exit. Make sure you don't lose too much time because it'll affect your run all the way up to the line. And of course Rocco Walsh, now opening a DRS, is going to set an 18.9 to start things off on the mediums, of course. So I think there is a Ferrari, or yeah, it is a Ferrari of Lordi, who's going to be setting the next lap, and he's going to set an 18.3, of course. Big difference in those two cars, and about 6/10, almost exactly 6/10 actually, between those two laps. Then Ross Denholm sets his lap at 19.2 for the AlphaTauri driver, and I think another AlphaTauri crossed the line, but that might just be to start a lap though. So we'll see. Okay, so Major's on the earlier part of the lap. That's Timer Azim finishing up in the Alpine, so we'll see what he can do, and he's going to cross the line. Looks like he's invalidated or something. Didn't show up on the track map there, but he didn't set a time. Let's just try and find, looks like Matthew Walder is going to be next, or at least he's going to be one of the next. As you can see, the McLaren of Thomas de Guyver is on an out lap. And I think maybe actually Lewis Curtis is going to be, no, he's going to be going to the pit lane in the Mercedes though, so probably would be expecting him to be the one to be on pole position at least, as of course Matthew Walder is going to get a little bit of slipstream from the McLaren here, and he's going to go provisional pole position, but he is on the softs though, as of course you can see, not even a tenth's difference between himself and Lordi of course on the medium tyres. Matthew the only one to set a time on the softs, as you can see. Thomas de Guyver just going through, getting his lap started. As now Matt in the Red Bull is finishing up the final few corners, so he's going to be looking for a good lap, of course, in the Red Bull as well. So would be expecting this to be close to the top as Lee Kelly sets provisional pole position, but Matt is going to go way faster, as almost half a second quicker, or actually over half a second quicker, you can say there. for Matt there. So he puts it on provisional pole position. Of course, Lee took the win last week in the Mercedes. That's almost the guy who actually crashed there. You can see on the left-hand side, or at least you saw briefly. So that's his lap over. And now I think it's going to be Lewis Millam, the next one to set a lap. As of course, again, turn 11, you want to keep off the curb, and then the long turn 12, you want to get a good exit, but you want to make sure also that you're not spinning out of the corner. And now the final few turns 13, or sorry, turns 14 and 15, I should say. 16 corners, of course, on this circuit is, of course, the final right-hander, and he's going to go ace with a 19.4, as pretty much everyone's going to be making their way to the pits now, as I think Lewis Curtis is going to be one of the first to set the next time on the soft compound of tyre, so would be expecting him to be up there. I'll use this opportunity to get the stream up quick, just before Lewis starts his lap. As through the chicane he goes, so this is really what's going to be setting up his lap, and now through the final corner, and he's going to be starting his lap now. So of course, approaching turn 1, not really much he can do right now. Well, the setup was done out of the chicane, so he's going to be getting up onto the curb to set himself up well, as yellow flags almost everywhere, full sectors briefly there. But now through turn 3 should be flat, or I'm fairly sure it should be flat. It's still pretty much an entire full course caution right now. Obviously it's just glitching out, as that is for, it seems, Ollie Flavel, who has crashed. But of course you can see there just briefly in some of the parts of sector 1 that Lewis did set a purple sector 1, and he's gone a little bit over, and that is going to be an invalid lap, so he's not going to be able to set a lap on this occasion, and that's his lap over, of course. So no pole position attempt from Lewis on this occasion, as we can see a very nice angle there of Dale Kelleher going round, and he's gonna have to get out of the way for, I think, at least the Williams. Okay, so that's Rocco one out lap, so he's looking to set the second lap of the day for him. As of course across the line to start his lap, only one on a lap right now. The next one is going to be Vantage, who I'll get the name of shortly. But of course through turns 1 and 2 want to use the curb, but you don't want to spin from it either. Turn 2 of course very easy to lose the back end, but he does it fairly well. And now approaching turn 4, as you want to just bring the car right up on the left hand side, just use all of the track available to you, of course. And then turn 5 downhill as well, a little bit more tricky. And then the chicane, of course, you want to use a lot of the curb on the entry and on the exit, but you want to make sure also that you're not invalidating, as he just coasts it through the right-hander there, but it looks like he's invalidated. Didn't actually notice him going wide anywhere, but it seems that is going to be an invalid lap. So the next person to set a lap then is going to be the Alfa Romeo, again with the yellow flags for seemingly no reason. So Christopher Knight then is in the Alfa Romeo then. So on board with Christopher Knight, as of course going through turn 1, want to use the curb. Maybe should have used a little bit more curb than he did, and he goes wide, and he's going to invalidate very early on the lap, and he's going to have to go back to the pits already. And of course he was the only one, or actually, well, no, Time Razim now is on a lap. He's in the Alpine, and he's going to have to abort that lap because he has spun at turn 12. As of course I've seen a few people do that, and yeah, he's going to be right into the pit lane. There's a little bit of a fight maybe for track position between Matthew and Lewis, who were teammates as well, of course, last season in F1. In the Alfa Romeo, that was. And now Matthew Older, of course, is going to be starting as Lewis Curtis, it seems, has backed off a little bit, just trying to get himself a clear track. So we'll stay on board with Matthew Older then, who should be the next person to set a lap. Or actually, no, it's going to... Yeah, no, Laurie's invalidated. It is going to be Matthew Older then, who's going to be going through, of course, turns 1 and 2. Gets up on the curb nicely, not to spin, of course, as well. And revs out 5th gear, making sure he has the turn in for turn 3. And then he's going to go through turn 4, of course, going nice and wide, using all the track available. And then turn 5, of course, a little bit downhill, braking as well, makes that all that more trickier as well. And through the chicane, he's going to invalidate and also lose the back end slightly. But he's going to be able to save it, and probably he's going to be going back to the pit lane now. As you can see, Lordy also getting into the pit lane. Lewis Millam is looking like the next person, also in the Haas, like Matthew Older, of course. He had a podium last week out, I think he was 3rd, if I remember correctly. So, of course, getting demoted a few cars, you can say. Promoted, of course, in the championship positions, but not going to work out too well. But maybe at a track like this, making it a little bit easier to score points, because it's a little easier to keep people behind as long as you use the ERS down the start finish straight. A little bit difficult to make an overtake really anywhere else, but you can see Lewis Millam, it looks like he's actually setting up a lap, so he's not going to be setting any bit quicker of a lap on this occasion, opening up the ERS right now. So actually it's going to be this lap that's going to count. As you can see, I was 15 seconds off there, so he probably spun or just took it that slowly, I'm not really sure. But up onto the curb now for Lewis, and he's going to, of course, attack both of the turn 1 and 2 curbs, and down to 5th gear, like Matthew Older, revving it out, making sure he has the turn in there. And now for turn 4, a little bit hesitant on the turn, it seems. It seemed like he kind of turned in twice for that, turning in a bit early the first time. But now you can see slingshotting himself through to the chicane, that has invalidated a few people now. Hasn't invalidated him, so he should be able to improve on his lap now, of course. Currently on the mediums, of course, Matthew Older on an 18.2. Wouldn't be expecting him to get close to that, but probably maybe an 18.5 or 6. I would be expecting him to be able to go 7th at least anyway, as he, of course, funnels through turn 12. And again with the yellow flags, seemingly for no reason still, but now he returns 14 and 15, goes a little bit wide, but I don't think he's been invalidated for it though, so he's going to come across the line now, currently 10th, and there you go, he's going to go 8th with an 18.7, so around what I kind of said, that he'd be able to get about maybe an 18.6, only 10th and a half kind of off. So 8th for Lewis Millam then. Lewis Curtis has actually set a lap now on the mediums as well, and he's gone provisional pole position with a 16.4, which is a second quicker than Timer Azim, who's on the softs in the Alpine, so you can see how easy that was. He probably won't need to set another lap. One thing that is the case though, I think he's actually run out of fuel. As Lordy now is going for another lap. Is Lewis Millam? Oh, yeah. He just set a lap, so it's going to be Lordy next to set a lap. Only person on the lap right now. Everyone's going to be waiting pretty much to the end of the lap, so Lordy just making sure he has a clean track, I guess, as he goes through turn 3, of course, and then approaches turn 4, where you want to chuck the car in and just let it take you out wide, just making sure not to clip the grass, as of course he's purple in sector 1, it seems. So maybe he's going to be able to challenge for a pole. Of course, he's on the softs as well. So compared to the mediums on a Mercedes, maybe that might make the difference. As of course, through the right-hander and approaching the hairpin. He's down to second gear. And now you don't want to touch that curb. Just going through, he's got a little bit of traffic as well up ahead of him, but I don't think it's going to affect him too much as he actually gets out of the way there, and he spins through. Of course, through turn 14, kind of got up on the curb, I guess, and just lost the car, and now, of course, not going to be able to improve at all, and he's going to be going to the pit lane, and there's no time to set another time now, as Timer Azim, who he just let by, of course, is going to be going through, but he's actually invalidated, so he's not going to be able to challenge for pole now. So looks like, I think Christopher is going to be on the lap now in the Alfa Romeo, so he's going to be the next person to set a lap, as long as he doesn't invalidate by the end of it, as he's got a little bit of traffic in an Alpine on the left, or actually not, to Williams there. It's of course down to second gear, and now through turns 11 and 12. 12, of course, very long. You want to get on the power, just making sure you don't spin. And now through turn 13, just clipping the curb nicely. And through turns 14 and 15, the final chicane that matters is loses the back end a little bit, saves it, but he's going to certainly lose time from that now. As will he be able to improve? He is going to improve by a tenth or two. I think it was about a 2/10 improvement in 18.8 up into 9th, but not really all that good, because he's going to be on softs. Most people are on him on mediums. Probably would have went for 11th if it was me. Still in day, it seems, has got into the session now. Stillen's going to be setting his one and only lap time. As through turns 14 and 15, he's got a Haas just up ahead of him. And that's Matthew Alder, who's just started his lap. But Dylan is going to put himself on an 18.2 for 5th place, so puts himself into the top 5. So we'll try and find someone else, of course. Ross Denham, okay, he's invalidated. Also invalidation for Rocco Walsh. Del Kelleher isn't on an invalid lap. He's just ahead of Matthew Alder. As I think maybe Timer Azim is on a lap, or Matt as well. Matt's behind. Timer Azim's also quite a bit behind, as of course Lee Kelly and Lordy is finished, because they haven't cut out for another lap. So I think it is going to be maybe Matthew Alder. I'll keep with Matthew Alder. If someone improves, I'll try and spot it and mention it anyway. But currently P6 for Matthew Alder. He's already set a time on the softs on 18.2 right now, so a little bit of an improvement could put him 5th. Maybe he could make his way into the top 5 a little bit more for a 4th, but I can't really see him going much further than that. As you can see, and Alfa Romeo has spun just ahead of him. He's going to continue to go through now the final chicane of turns 14 and 15. Goes over the yellow curb a little bit, but takes it nicely. And now through the final flat right-hander. Yellow flags everywhere again naturally, and I did say into 4th place 17.7 as Dylan Days taking some avoiding action, I think there, just trying to let people through. As Lewisman finishes up, he's in 9th. Matt is not going to be improving. He's going to keep his medium lap time, and Timer Azim is going to be starting up, of course. This glitch. And you can see he's ghosted as well, so we're probably going to have to wait out this entire minute. And finally it fixes. But Timer did have to leave for it though. I'm not sure if he was told to leave, but oh, here we go then. Of course. Timer Azim is on pole, but shouldn't be. So Lewis Curtis is on pole, and then Timer Azim, I think, was then second. Matt third, Matthew Alder in fourth, Lee Kelly fifth, Dundane sixth, Lordy seventh, Ross Denham eighth, then Lewis Millum and Christopher, then Rocco, Dale, Thomas, Cameron, Ollie, and Edward. Just to go through that, but yeah, that's just a great game. I hope no one's out of position, but with how this game is, like defeating someone, or pretty much the whole grid, you can say is going to be out of position. As you win now, just to get everyone's strategies together, as of course the setups now are locked by Park Fermi. And everyone's out of position. Of course. Not sure if Massey's going to call for a restart here. But I think the authority is with him. The real pole position is Lewis Curtis. Timer Azim, of course, put himself in P2, and it's where he should be. So really everyone else is in position. It's just that Lewis has kind of just had his pole taken away from him for no reason. Which isn't really Timer's fault, it's just the game's fault being this bad. And Timer's back in the lobby. So are we gonna start like this is the question. I mean, I think it should be a restart because Lewis should be the one on pole position. Timer Azim shouldn't be, but he is. So it's unfair to Lewis to take away what's rightfully his, really. In my opinion. As outside of the top 10 then, everyone on the mediums apart from Cameron and Edward who have opted for the hards. So probably they'll all be going for one stops, medium hard or hard medium. Obviously, Cameron and Edward thinking the hards are the better tire to start on. Well, it looks like we're going to be going here anyway, so it's 5 red lights to the Spanish Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go. Time Regime gets a bad start, so Lewis Curtis is going to be leading as we head down towards turn 1. Matthew Walder is going to slip into the slipstream as well, as a Red Bull trying to get involved in that as well. That's Matt, who's looking around the outside of the Haas. The Haas is going to cover him off, I would think, though, as he's going to retain his second place as the Aston Martin of Lee Kelly there goes through for third place. So Time Regime looks like losing even more positions now. He's out of the points all of a sudden, so it seems like he's been involved in something, probably spun. Not really sure if he's been spun around by someone or spun himself, but virtual safety car now very early on, of course. Lewis Curtis gets back into his rightful spot, leading this race. Of course, Time Regime is again lagged out and joined back in. So just looking at the early position changes, of course, Matthew Walder just making up one place. He started rightfully in P3. I'll say as that is, really, because Time Regime had a bad start anyway. But yeah, Lee Kelly then up to third into the podium places, of course. Matt then losing a position, or I guess he would have lost technically 2. I'm not really sure how it would work, because Time Regime, of course, very much out of position. One person who had a fairly good start, of course, is Rocco Walsh, who's made himself up into the points. Of course, 7th, making up 4 positions, and Edward Hart as well in 12th, but also making up 4 positions for himself. So fairly good there. As it looks like, has Matt already passed Lee Kelly? Was that an illegal overtake? I'm not sure. But I think it was anyway. Something just happened there, just as we're back now anyway. But I think Matt had passed Lee Kelly before he was allowed. I'm not sure. The line is fairly early, but he did seem to get that move done fairly quickly. He may have been just alongside Lee Kelly fairly early as well. I'm not really sure. Or, well, actually, it wasn't a full safety car anyway, so I don't think that actually applies. So, of course, Lewis Curtis leading this race. I think he's going to continue to lead this race now, as, of course, Matthew Walder in the Haas behind him. There's no reason why Lewis will be losing time to Matthew. And you can see 1.6, 1.7 seconds even. He's almost gaining a 10th every corner that he does. Looks like Matt's getting a little bit close to Matthew Walder. He's going to be looking on the inside. He's going to be forced up onto the curb, and he's not going to be able to make a move. Matthew Walder fending him off for now, but I don't think he's going to be able to fend him off for much longer, though, because, of course, that Red Bull, that Honda engine versus a Ferrari, the best engine. Or, well, I'm not sure, actually. The Mercedes might be the best engine, but either the best or second best engine versus very much the worst anyway. So I don't think Matthew Walder is going to be able to hold out for very long, unfortunately. As, of course, Dylan Day doesn't have a helmet. That's just normal. There's always one driver, because this game is just that good. As you can see, even Matt looking for a move into the hairpin just wasn't quite long enough to be able to make a move. As now you can see Lewis Curtis has got out of even a penalty range, 3 seconds now that he's gapped Matthew Walder. Matthew Walder's still holding up Matt. Is that someone around? That's not Ross Denham. It's Lee Kelly who's around, actually. Not really sure what he spun because of, but he's ghosting through now. He's ghosting through. Well, both of them are ghosting through each other, actually. As Dale Keller is going to ghost really back through, as now Matt makes a move on Matthew Walder, fairly predicted there. Of course, that long of a straight, he wasn't really going to be able to hold on for that long. As now Lordy and Dundee, the 2 Ferraris, find themselves fighting for 4th place. Of course, it's kind of best of the rest, like off the podium. So you get a nice shot here of Rocker Walsh's rear wing. Of course, this is Ross Denham trying to hunt him down. Both of them with DRS, so not exactly too easy. As Lee Kelly's actually looking at a move. He's on the outside of the Alfa Romeo. He goes a little bit wide though, and he's going to have to try and cut back in, but Dale Keller is of course going to keep the place in that scenario. As still looking down the inside, but can't quite make it work, as now Lewis Curtis sets the fastest lap of the race. And we're sure he had it before, so he's just improving on what he already had, really. As now today closing up a little bit to Lordy, but I can tell you most likely that these two Ferraris are probably making up time with Matthew Older as well. This fight for fourth involving 4 cars. Might end up being a fight for third in a few laps if Lordy can catch Matthew Alder. There's a little bit of a mistake maybe from Rocker Walsh, and now Ross Denham's looking a little bit closer. If he can use the DRS and slipstream well enough, he might be able to get close enough, but looks like his exit off turn 9 wasn't quite good enough. And he's going to have to stick behind, of course. Is that a Ferrari? No, okay. 2 Ferraris continue to be 4th and 5th. And it does seem like they are making up time on Matthew Older, but only little by little though, only maybe a 10th or 2 over the lap. As they all funnel through the first few corners, Lewis Curtis continues to extend his advantage. Lee and Christopher now going side by side. Of course, Lee had made a move on Dale Keller, it seems. And now, well, Christopher also gets a penalty for good measure after being passed in 10th place, so that's going to drop him out of the points if it were to stay like this. But, of course, it is a long race and other people can still get penalties. As Ollie Flevel now gets a 3-second penalty as well. He's running 13th in the Williams, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. As is that a safety car? I can't actually see. It is a safety car. And it's for Christopher, who has crashed at turn 7, it seems. Turn 7, the kind of turn 8 as well. Of course, turn 8 is just a slight kink to the right on the exit, but now Lewis Curtis, who started on the mediums, is in. He's going to be putting on a set of soft tyres into the pit lane as well. Matt, who's been running 2nd place, is probably going to be putting on a set of softs as well. You can see, no, he's going to be putting on a set of hards. I should actually change this real quick. He is on a set of hard tires. The 2 Ferraris, it seems, are double stacking here. As who's going to be staying out actually? Dale Keller is going to be staying out. He wasn't able to jump the Mercedes of Lewis Curtis there, so he's going to have to take a 2nd place, but he is running a legit 2nd place, you can say. Most people opted for the hards. Of course, Lewis Curtis going for the softs, probably just trying to protect his fastest lap, knowing that he's gonna gap the grid once the safety car goes in. Of course, this is lap 2 of the safety car, so it'll be in at the end of next lap. And with pretty much everyone into the pit lane, everyone's gonna line up behind the safety car fairly quickly, actually. Big loser really there would be Dylan Day, of course. Double stacking with his teammate was never really going to go well, and he's now down to 10th when he was just following behind his teammate in 5th. Or at least his Ferrari teammate, not actual teammate, of course. It will be interesting to see how Dale Keller does now. Of course, he is the only one on the grid who decided to stay out, with everyone else pitting. And most of them will be going to the end. The difference, though, is that they'll all be fighting each other to the end because they're all on hards, pretty much. Of course, Edward Hart and Timer Azim went for the mediums on their stop. And of course, Lordy and Lewis went for the softs. But if right now Dale Keller still has a bit of pace on his mediums, he could form a little bit of a gap to the hard runners. Probably he would get passed by Matt, though. But later on in the race really is when we'll see if his strategy works or not. So now this lap should be the lap that it's in. Of course, we'll get confirmation when it enters sector 3, more or less. Wouldn't really think Lewis Curtis will have to worry on the restart too much, though. Of course, on the softs and with that Mercedes engine compared to the Ferrari engine in the Alfa Romeo, don't really think he's going to be challenged all that much going down into turn 1. Really, the fight, you would think, is between Matt and Dale Keller if Dale can continue to run P2 by the end of turn 1 or not. As you can see, the safety car is in this lap. And it's going to be Lewis Curtis to slow down the grid. It's up to him when he wants to go, as of course he will have to wait a little bit to make sure the safety car's in the pit lane, but he can go whenever he wants up to the safety car line. Of course, he could go now, as actually it seems like he's going to be going out of the final corner, as of course some people had to brake a little bit suddenly there at the exit, but he's going to be continuing on. The Mercedes engine going to work for him. Matthew Waller's in the slipstream of the Red Bull, but it's not going to be enough. Of course, that Red Bull having the natural straight line speed over the Haas, of course, and he's going to have to remain 4th place for now. Lordy also looking at the back of him. As down the inside now for Ross Denholm, who's been looking at this move for a while now, as he's going to be looking down the inside, and it looks like he's going to make the move now as well. As he is going to make the moves up into 6th place now. Lordy, of course, on the softs is actually looking at a move on Matthew Waller side by side. He's going at the outside for turn 7. He's going to want to be careful though, as has someone spun. Lewis Curtis has spun in the Mercedes. And he's at the back of the grid now. He was leading only a few moments ago, as now Matt looks around the outside of the Alfa Romeo, and it looks like he's going to be able to make that work. He's still on the outside for turn 11 and turn 12. He's going to be able to finish and move off, and now he is the leader of this race. Matthew Waller gets a second chance to continue running in the podium places. Lordy now is going to be looking at a move on the Haas, of course, on those soft tyres, as Dale Keller doesn't have the greatest exit, as Matt is going to be continuing on fairly easily now. So maybe we could see a 3-wide moment. Of course, it is Ferrari engine versus Ferrari engine versus Ferrari engine. Actually, the 3 Ferrari powered cars down towards turn 1. The Ferrari of Lordy is going to be looking down the inside and still have the inside for turn 3. Makes the move on Matthew Walder up into the podium places now. Of course, that's softs versus hards, but he's gone a little bit wide though, and actually Matthew Walder is going to be able to go back through fairly easily. As of course, Matthew Walder now continuing in the podium places. Ross Denham now, it seems like, has made a move on Lee Kelly as well, so he looks like a little bit on a move on, kind of. As now Dale Keller still under pressure from Matthew Walder, and of course Lewis Lordy is going to be looking at a move as well, as down the inside for Matthew Walder. He's going to have to try and squeeze out the Alfa Romeo, and now through turn 11 he's going to finish off the move and up into second place. 2.6 seconds, by the way, the gap to first. But now Lordy's looking down the inside as well. But he's going to come back at him, though, still side by side. But I think finally the move is going to be finished off. And now it's going to allow Ross Denham to go down the inside for turn 16. DRS now is in activation, and actually there's been a crash. There's been a massive crash, and this surely is going to cause another safety car. Ross Denham, luckily for himself, isn't out of this Grand Prix. Dale Keller certainly is out of this Grand Prix. He's DNF'd now in 13th, of course, not going to be able to get any points at all. Lewis Curtis came into the pit lane after his spin onto the hard tyres and going to the end. So lucky for him to get a safety car at this point. But what a collision. Of course, it was Lordy who had made a move initially on Dale Keller. Dale Keller didn't get the best exit. Of course, it was a little bit compromised the line because he was defending from Lordy, and actually in the second phase attacking Lordy to try and preserve his podium place. And now, of course, he's out of this race entirely. Lordy is going to inherit the P3 into the podium places, so he won't mind too much, I don't think. And really it was between Lee, or was it Lee? It was Ross, actually. It was between Ross and Dale Keller. The actual incident happened at the exit of turn 16, of course. Dale Keller looked like he got a little bit out of sorts. And now, of course, he is out of this race. Luckily for Ross, he's going to be able to continue and certainly go into the pit lane. We'll see how much damage he has now. As yeah, he has no wing at all, so he's very lucky to still be in this race. Edward Hart is also going to be going into the pit lane. I think it's going to be for another set of mediums, probably, to go to the end from lap 12. I think probably possible, as Lewis is going to continue on with the softs. As Matt, of course, is going to get collected by the safety car. So then we should be racing by the end of lap 13. Going on to lap 14 will be the next racing lap, you can say. So the last person to catch the safety car then will be Ross Denham. Lewis Curtis is going to be catching it in a few moments, as he has caught it now. And we'll have one more lap of the safety car, of course. As you can see, a safety car in this lap. As the lights go out, and it's up to Matt when he wants to restart. As he should be slowing down. Yeah, he's going to slow down now. He's going to let the safety car go. And it's up to Matt now when he wants to go. Of course, Lewis Curtis decided to go right at the final corner, and it looks like Matt is going to go pretty much at the same point now, as we are racing once again. Of course, Matthew Alder trying to get a good exit on the Red Bull, as the Red Bull trying to break the toe, very much weaving quite a lot there. And is going to continue to lead this race, of course, going into turn 1. Lewis, or Lordy, I keep calling him Lewis, but it is Lordy anyway. He's going to remain third on those softs. The softs maybe getting a little bit old now. As of course Edward Hart, I think, just got overtaken there. Lewis Millam is looking for a move on Dylan Day. Gets a little bit out of sorts and loses the car slightly. As now Edward Hart is going to be able to go through. And on the inside of Lewis Millam is going to make 2 overtakes in pretty much a corner and a bit. So a lovely little bit of racecraft there from Edward. And I'm fairly sure it was Edward that I missed something on one of the other races. I'm sure you'll be glad I caught that anyway. As now in the background, Williams is looking on the inside, or maybe it's Lewis Curtis actually looking on the outside there. As side by side he gets squeezed out on the exit of the hairpin, and Ollie Favell is going to continue to be 9th. But Lewis Curtis actually is going to find some space on the inside, as Ollie Favell got a little bit wide going through turn 11. Or actually turn 12, I should say. And of course Mercedes now up into 9th, getting through up the points. As it seems like Lordy has passed Matthew Alder. Matthew Alder now defending from Lee Kelly. It seems like, has Ross Denham maybe... No, it actually seems like just a bit of a fight here. Is Ollie Favell and Ross Denham looking for moves on each other? Is Ross Denham looking on the outside? Is Ollie Favell now down to 10th? As now Dunday's going to have to defend a little bit from Lewis Curtis, of course. Lewis Curtis is going to be looking to retake his lead of the race, really, that he did have. This is right at the back of the Ferrari. There's yellow flags behind. That's for Ollie Favell, who you can see is in the gravel and probably spun there in turn 11. As you can see, he had a little bit of wing damage, but now DRS is in activation. The Mercedes of Lewis Curtis is going to look for a move on Dylan Day. He's going to look down the inside. It's Mercedes versus Ferrari as well, and the engine of that Mercedes is going to propel him through up into 7th place. Now who is spun there? That's Matt actually, who is spun. I don't know if that was a reset to track. It looked a little bit like a reset to track the way his car was positioned, but I guess if someone saw it, then they would report it anyway. As now Lordy is going to take the lead of this race now after Matt's spin. Matthew Alder is going to be 2nd, of course, and Lee Kelly is going to inherit a P3 from that in the Aston Martin. Edward Hart now finds himself in a very strong P4, you have to say. And he's going to be looking for the podium places, I'm sure, in a few moments. Probably sooner rather than later as well. As of course he goes through turn 12. He is closing up to Lee Kelly. Looks like he has the pace advantage. As through turns 14 and 15. A little bit deep into the corner. It locks up as well. He's going to remain in the DRS just about, but he's going to be far too much away to be making moves now. Matt into the pit lane. Timer Azim, I think, is lagged out actually. As we get a virtual safety car, which kind of just halts Lewis Curtis's progress, really, if anything. As it hasn't been upgraded to a safety car, at least this time. As what is that's okay? So it was for Lewis Millam, I guess. That he had an incident, maybe on his own, maybe with someone, I'm not sure. But now he's going to retire from the session, which, to be honest, fair enough. As now is this Lewis Curtis looking for movies on the inside, and he's going to go up into the top 5 now. After making a move on Rocco Walsh's next target, going to be Edward Hart, but Edward Hart also setting his sights on P3 as well. Of course, Lee Kelly currently running P3. Don't think Edward Hart is going to let that happen for too long. And Lewis Millam, okay, it seems like it was an incident with someone then. Unfortunately. As you can see, Lewis Curtis certainly has the grip advantage over the Alpha Tauri, and certainly the pace advantage as well, naturally. It's a little bit of a lock-up, it seems, as well. You can see how much more pace the Mercedes has and how much faster it could go if it was ahead. And you can see he's going to be looking for a move probably out of the exit of turn 9, as DRS now is in activation. As he goes quite wide, he's going to actually take the old layout, and he's going to lose a place to Rocco Walsh there as well, down to 6th. As of course that was because of a bit of a sudden lift from Edward Hart there that Lewis Curtis didn't quite see coming, and of course he had to take to the old layout, which to be fair play for not spinning, because sometimes with those older or those other bits of the track that you're not usually taking, they're usually a little bit more slippery than they need to be. As now Lewis Curtis on the inside of Rocco Walsh, and now up to P5 is the round there. That's Edward Hart actually, who is running a fairly strong P4, and now of course he's round, loses back end a little bit for good measure, down to 8th place. As Timer Azim, I don't think is actually in this race, so won't actually matter if he's overtaken really. Probably get the position back fairly quickly. As Edward spun again. He has spun again, unfortunately. And now he is running last. And of course it makes it one overtake easier for Lewis Curtis to retake the lead of this race. He's got fresher tyres as well than most people on the track, at least, unless you recently pit for mediums, as Lee Kelly loses the back end out of the final corner. Lewis Curtis just doesn't hit him, and also sets the fastest lap of the race for good measure. So fairly easily making his way through the field, you can say, for Lewis Curtis. Is now next person to overtake will be Matthew Walder, as has oh, it seems he's actually retired this time. Of course, yellow flags in Sector 2. Edward Hart has now left the session. And now we're down to 9 drivers. But if Timer Azim isn't racing, and I'm fairly sure he isn't, then I guess it's more 8 than 9. As it was on the right hand side there that Edward Hart crashed out on. As Lordy actually has a penalty now as well, I notice. So really Lewis just needs to make a move on Matthew Alder and he'll be fine as long as he doesn't get a penalty himself. I'd say even then though he'd be able to make the move fairly easily now, as of course Matthew Alder will be under pressure. He won't have DRS from Lordy in front, to 1.7 second gap to him, but the Mercedes is going to be closing all the way down to turn 1. He's going to be looking to the inside. Matthew Alder is actually going to cover off the inside line and force him around the outside, but even then it's going to be fairly easy, and of course around the outside for Lewis Curtis and up into second place, and now he can chase after Lordy, who's been leading for quite a while now on those softs. But again, on top of the fact that he has the penalty, he'll also have to pit again. So interesting choice to go into the softs, but really at this point not really the best choice, looking back on it. As you can see how much time he's gaining on the Ferrari as well. Already in the DRS, and he only just made a move on Matthew Alder. Matthew Alder, of course, was about 1.7 or 1.8 seconds off, so you can see he's cut the gap way more than half. He's close over a second already, and he's right behind the Ferrari versus Mercedes engine. I think it's a fairly easy equation here. It's out of turn 16 now, opening up the DRS in the slipstream of the Ferrari, and it looks like it's going to be an even easier move compared to the move he had to make on Matthew Alder, and he's up into the lead of this race once again, as he was earlier on in the race. Is now Lee Kelly in the background also making a move on Matthew Alder in the slipstream in DRS, of course. So Lee Kelly remains in the in the podium places. Of course, he got down to P4 because of Lewis Curtis overtaking him, but he's re-overtaken someone else to put him back in the podium places, and now 15 points at the moment at least, because he does have that penalty. And now Lewis Curtis also has a penalty, but he's pulled 1.5 seconds to the Ferrari, and I get the feeling that kind of pace isn't going to stop, especially with having fresher tyres than all the hard runners, at least, who are currently going still. Kind of doubt that Matthew Alder is going to be close enough, especially with the Mercedes engine in the Alpine, as Lordy now is finally going to come into the pit lane, which is going to promote Matthew Alder back up into the podium places, where he has been more or less for pretty much the entire race, which is just fairly normal for him, really. As now, of course, Lordy is last at the moment, because of course Time Regime is not actually here. As you can see here, his car is ghosted, and you can see the inputs are fairly clearly an AI, not actually a player. It's now almost a 5 second gap that Lewis Curtis has pulled to Lee Kelly. Dylan Day is fairly close to the back of Rocco Walsh, but of course Rocco Walsh does have a Mercedes engine, so it makes it a little bit easier to fend off the advances of Dylan Day, and Dylan is going to be closing down towards turn 1, but I don't think he's going to be quite close enough. He is going to dive it anyway, and he's actually going to be able to make the move work, and he's now up into 5th place. Of course, that was preferred position, neither of them currently with penalties. And I think that's more or less the last that we're going to get of overtaking in this race, because, well, Matthew Walder, I would say, is going to continue to run the slipstream and DRS of Lee Kelly, and of course with Lee Kelly's Mercedes engine, probably not going to be able to make a move. And then of course with Dylan Day being in a much quicker car compared to Williams, I get the feeling he's going to start pulling a gap to Rocco, and apart from that there's no one really close to anyone. Next fight I would say is probably going to be Matt and the two in front of him, which of course is Rocco Walsh and Dylan Day. He's probably going to be able to catch both of them. As there's 9 laps to go if my calculations aren't incorrect. As now Rocco Walsh trying to close back up to the Ferrari, and he does so, but just wasn't able to be close enough for a move. Of course that Mercedes engine certainly going to be keeping him in this fight, I think, for a little bit at least. And you can see the Red Bull of Matt in the background, who did spin earlier, who probably would still be leading this race if it weren't for the spin. As Matthew's almost lost the DRS to Lee Kelly now, which is pretty much as expected. But just about gets to keep the DRS for a lap longer, at least. And you can see the gap developing between the Ferrari and the Williams. And here's Matt, of course he's joined the fight for 5th now, but he does have a penalty. I'm not sure if he has 2 at the moment, as we'll just have a little check. Yeah, just 3 seconds. And 6 for Ross Denham. Everyone else, of course, with no penalties. So now is Matt going to be able to make a move? Looks to the inside, but just wasn't close enough, as Lordy now gets, I think, what was his 2nd penalty? It is his 2nd penalty, 6 seconds now. As is this? Oh, this is actually Matthew Walder making a move on Lee Kelly. That's something not expected. Is Matt also going through for an overtake on Rocco Walsh, making his way up into P6. Did not expect Matthew Walder to be able to come back at the lead, but then again, it's Matthew Walder. Maybe I shouldn't have doubted him. Even with the Ferrari engine still making it work, Lee maybe making a mistake, because there was about 8 or 9 tenths between them. As now Matt is going to be looking at a move on Dylan Day. But he's going to have to gap these guys as well quite a bit by the end of the race. As you can see, Rocco Walsh losing quite a bit of time, and it's now Matt is looking down the inside, looking around the outside as well, maybe even a switchback in the hairpin. He is going to be looking down the inside now of turn 11. And he's going to find some amount of space at least, as Dylan Day gets a little bit out of sorts, has to correct his car, and actually squeezes him out of the exit there. And the Red Bull's going to have to remain behind, but for how much longer now though? as he gets another penalty, but he's going to be in the slipstream. He's going to have DRS as well, a better engine as they come through turn 16, as Matthew Walder's getting passed by Lee Kelly again, so just kind of a back and forth there. Is now the Red Bull looking on the inside. He actually goes off the track to make that move, but he's going to make the move work anyway. He's up into 5th place. Not really a legal move, but then again, Dylan also kind of pushed him off. As now, is this a side-by-side? No, Matthew Walder gets to move back on Lee again, going through the first few corners, which tells me that Lee surely made a mistake again, but maybe as well they're just making moves on each other quite a bit. As now Ross Denham has joined the fight for 2nd place, but of course Matthew Walder is going to come out on top of this fight because he doesn't have any penalties compared to Lee having, I think, is 3 and then Ross having 6. As yeah, this. As Ross, of course, not quite in the DRS range yet. Still about 1.1 seconds, 1.2 seconds behind. As now on to lap 29 out of 33. Lewis Curtis has quite the lead now. As it increases to 13 seconds. Lee Kelly using... Actually, he wasn't using ERS there. He was just pulling on pure pace there at the exit of turn 3. As little lockups for both of them. As he did actually use a little bit of ERS out of turn 5. Trying to chase down Matthew Walder, of course. But I get the feeling it's going to be too little too late though, because he's not going to be able to pull a 3-second gap on Matthew Walder. So even if he did make the overtake, kind of would be a lost cause. Matthew Walder not really want to get penalties. Matt now has gapped Dylan Day 1.3 seconds. Rocco Walsh has been able to stay in the DRS of the Ferrari, as actually I don't think he'll be in DRS anymore. There's a little bit of a mistake in turn 14 there, goes a little bit deep, and of course you can see now as Matthew Walder is getting passed again by Lee Kelly. These two again fighting away for it, as I'm gonna stay on board because it seems like they make moves pretty much anywhere, these two. As Lee Kelly does pull a little bit of a gap though, so Matthew Walder not going to get a chance anytime soon, I don't think. And now Ross Denham is, well, he was in the DRS for a moment anyway, as I don't think he'll get DRS as we go through towards the hairpin. The crossover line, yeah, he doesn't have DRS, but he is within DRS range now, is 9/10. So a little bit of, well, a good last sector, you can say, from Ross Denham. Will certainly put himself in DRS range anyway as he continues to close up. As Lewis Curtis starts lap 31, you can see the massive gap he has to the rest of the grid. It's now going through turn 14, he goes a little bit deep, and I don't think he's going to have DRS range now, but Matthew Walder is going to have DRS on Lee Kelly. He's going to be in the slipstream, and he's going to be looking down the inside. Lee Kelly sticks to the outside line, and now Matthew Walder is going to pull ahead of the Aston Martin and into P2 once again. Of course, this is only fighting on track, because Matthew Walder will have this P2 anyway by the end of the race. As now going through turn 3, the Aston Martin just a little bit too far, and the Haas is going to remain in P2 after previously getting overtaken. So what can Ross Denham do now? It's just checking again. It is still gonna finish pretty much as we're seeing. as it looks like actually Dylan and Rocco Walsh will be able to benefit on penalties from at least Matt though. And they're just, well, at least Dylan Day's just outside of the range where he needs to be to benefit from Ross Denham, so we could still be looking at a P4 finish. But we're going to go back on board with Lee Kelly, who's looking at a move again on Matthew Alder. Matthew Alder is going to look to the inside to defend this time, as Lee Kelly's going to go right around the outside of the Haas, and he's going to be able to make the move. But is he going to be able to keep it though, as the Haas and Aston Martin go through turn 3? Again, Ross Denham just kind of watching this fight, not really getting involved in it right now, but he's certainly where he needs to be now, as of course lap 32 out of 33. Lewis is just entering the final sector of lap 32, and it looks like he's going to be able to bring this home. Even if he spun, he would still probably win this race, as he's a full pit stop ahead of these guys now almost. This fight really is kind of already decided in a way, although they are still fighting away for it, certainly. Maybe if Matthew Alder got a penalty on the last lap, then Lee Kelly would be able to continue and take a P2. And we'll see the Haas closing into turn 1. Of course, Lee's going to use the last little bit of ERS that he has left, but still the Haas is going to be able to find some space on the inside, and he's going to be able to get up into P2 for now. But can Lee Kelly do anything, maybe with a better exit and look on the inside for turn 4? He's going to be looking on the inside for turn 4 certainly, but I don't think he's going to be close enough, as he isn't. Is still looking for any way around the Haas as they go downhill for turn 5. The downhill braking, of course, still looking for a better well, switchback line really is what I'm saying, is of course now through turn 7 and turn 8, turn 9 really, if he nails it, he might have a chance going into the hairpin, but it's going to be his last chance as he opens up the DRS. He's going to be closing on the Haas as well. He's going to be looking on the inside maybe, but he's going to be sensible about it, and he's going to stick behind, and I think that's going to be pretty much the end of that. So Lewis Curtis is going to come across the line in the end and win. I don't really think anyone doubted him, as of course the rest has about 20 seconds to go for their races. But Lewis Curtis, your winner today, of course, in the Mercedes. And Matthew Alder is going to come across the line in second and take P2 as well. He looks fairly happy. He's weaving across the line as well. Lee Kelly, of course, is going to end up P3. Ross Denham in P4. And then actually Dylan Day is going to just about take P4. And I think maybe Rocco Walsh made up a place as well on penalties at the end. I'm not sure. So there we have it then. Lewis Curtis, of course, takes the win. And he gets to lift the trophy and spray the champagne. Matthew Alder in P2. And of course Lee Kelly in P3. I think Matthew Alder actually taking consecutive P2s this week and last week. As of course he is so good at getting them. And Lee Kelly rounds out the podium in P3. So there you have it then. Of course, Lewis Curtis, he will get the points for pole position, because it's where he should have been anyway. So that's 2 points and a point for fastest lap. Got full points for the win. So taking the maximum 28 points as possible. Matthew Alder, of course, in second. Lee Kelly in third. Dylan Day getting promoted up into fourth. Ross Denham going down to fifth. Matt in sixth, Rocco Walsh in seventh, so didn't quite get close enough to benefit there. Lordy, of course, in eighth. Timer is going to be disqualified because, of course, he didn't actually do most of the race. And I'll just go down here quickly just to catch the end. I think it's going to leave me here for a little bit longer at least. So Edward Hart, of course, in 10th with a DNF, and yeah, it is going to kick me out there, of course. So to finish there then, of course, Lewis Millam, all of these are DNFs. Lewis Millam in 11th, Ollie in 12th, Dale Keller 13th, Christopher 14th, Tom Segarver in 15th, and Cameron Young rounds out the grid in 16th, of course. So that is going to be the end of the stream. I don't have time for interviews, so unfortunately that is going to be it. But that has been it, of course, as I said, for FP Round 6 in Spain. Hopefully you join us next week. I'll just get the track quickly. I'm not completely sure what it is. It is Spain and then Russia, actually. Okay, so Russia, round 7 next week. So be sure to join us then for that. And that is it from me. I've been Kevin Harrison. And hopefully, of course, as I said, we'll see you next week. And of course, this is next. Well, I don't know what I'm saying. This weekend will be when you're seeing Russia in F1 and F2, and then FP will be on Wednesday. That is what I'm trying to say. Got it out in the end. So yeah, that has been it, and hopefully we'll see you next week.